Hi, I'm Malessa.
And I'm Candice.
Welcome back to The Build Up, where we discuss the secrets of building wealth through real estate. Today's episode is presented by Brown Harris Stevens.
This episode marks the season 1 finale of The Build Up. Today, we're going to be revisiting some of the biggest real estate investing strategies that we covered, as well as some of the insights and takeaways that we had from season 1. So it's really incredible how many different real estate investing strategies we were able to cover in season 1.
Yeah, I can't believe we're at the end. I mean, it feels like it was just yesterday that we started. And part of our mission is to empower our community and how to build wealth through real estate. And that's how The Build Up came to be. But it's been an incredible journey for season 1, and we've all been on this journey together, especially our team. So David had been instrumental in, having this first season, as well as our producers, Fabian and Ali. Thank you so much for all you've done and really supporting us in the first season. And of course, our company, BHS, they've been super, super supportive.
Yes, they have been. And like you said, it's been a great journey, and we're kind of sad to be at the end of it, but we're already ramping up for season 2. So that's exciting.
Excited for that.
Looking back at season 1, though, come to think of it, we really hit everyone off with such a hard first real estate investing strategy. Our first episode was about ground up development, and especially when we spoke with tech founder John Roa and how he did it internationally, of all places, on the exotic island of Greece.
Yeah, and that was very interesting. As you know, here in New York City, we do a lot of new developments and we represent a lot of developers. So it was very interesting to see it from a different perspective. He went in there falling in love with the country, falling in love with the island, and then he decided to build a home there, which is very different from what we see, right? Usually developers, they come in, they analyze the land and look for it from a profit perspective. So that was really interesting to learn and see a different perspective.
Right. To see someone who's not in real estate, who actually kind of does the opposite, try to tackle real estate development, do it very successfully, I might add. But
beautiful.
And beautifully. Yes. He did an amazing job. And we know how hard, because we work with real estate developers every day, we know how hard it is to develop, especially, and see it, all the way through to make a beautiful quality product. And then knowing that he didn't have that experience, but was able to do it successfully in a foreign country. I mean, that was such an impressive conversation and so enlightening.
It really was. And I think for the next guest in the next episode, it was artist Christopher Florentino, also known as Flore. That was a very enlightening conversation because, as you know, Flore is our client, and we have been representing him in the purchase of a few homes, especially here in New York City. But I thought it was very interesting to, see it from the other side, right? Like, we've always been showing him properties, but we're looking at it from the brokerage side and brokers. But he comes in and he really sees these potential in these, properties. And he's even bought a few of them via FaceTime. He didn't even have to come in and see it personally. And I thought that was super cool. His eye for design, that was great to learn more about it.
Yeah, he really represents the art of home flipping. And it's a very tough strategy to get right. There's such little margin for error. And what stood out to me about his story, which I think not only myself, but I think a lot of our listeners can resonate with, is that he started with one property. It was like a couple $100,000. He bought it in Florida. He was able to renovate it and then flip it for a profit, use those proceeds to roll it and do that rinse and repeat over and over again. He did it in multiple states as well, in New Jersey, and then also here in New York City, like you mentioned with us. But we know how hard it is to flip, especially in this market, because the price points are so high. But he did it successfully here too. So he's clearly, definitely nailed that art in addition to, his main art, his form of painting. But so that's why I loved listening to his story, because it's not easy. And, he also started small, but then grew from there.
Yeah, the margin for error is just super slim, but he seems to have found his niche, right? And he's doing really well. So excited to be on this journey with him.
Yeah. Finding your niche is important. And I think that's what you and I did when we first pursued brokerage as an initial way for us to learn about building wealth through real estate. Obviously, brokerage in itself helps you to do that, right? It can be a very lucrative career once you kind of learn what you're doing and build a business, which is easier said than done. But that's why when we explored brokerage and how to use it to build wealth with our very own CEO, Bess Friedman, was another great conversation as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy that conversation, to be able to sit down with her and just have such an open and honest conversation about just brokerage and, just her being a leader here at BHS. We've been so fortunate to have her as an empowered woman, right? And she's been super supportive of us, really pushing our podcast, which is great. But beyond that, it was just really great to have that conversation and learn more from her, right? Like, how has she looked at real estate as an investment? And she did give a lot of tips. So that's definitely an episode that you want to tune into.
Yeah, she's definitely no nonsense. And she was very straightforward about, if you do want to build a career as a real estate agent, you really need to learn what you're doing, to show up prepared, and to be willing to work hard and hustle and get there in time. And so that's something that we talk a lot about, because obviously we've gone through it ourselves, and we see a lot of people who try to enter our industry as agents. And, that's why the turnover rate is so staggering. Over 80% of agents leave within the first 3 to 5 years. So it's
we as leaders have witnessed that ourselves, and we've seen agents come in and they really do, and Bess highlighted this as well, they have this mentality. They come in, they see these shows on TV, and they really glamorize real estate, and they forget to mention about the work that it comes with, right? And so these agents, they come in, they want to make a quick buck, and then they fall off, because it really does take a lot of grit and determination to really make it in this industry. We've seen it, like we said, and you really have to come in and look at real estate as a business.
You do. And if you do, in fact, treat it the right way, you can make a nice amount of return from it and then move that into investments if you so choose. So that's kind of been our path, and it was great to kind of highlight that as one of the strategies. But moving into home ownership, right? That's the American dream for sure. And that's what we discussed at length with celebrity chef Priyanka Nayak.
That was a really cool conversation. We enjoyed talking to Priyanka because we've been on the journey with her as well. She's a client of ours, and we represented her sale of her first home that she purchased, and she used that equity to level up to get her really, really nice apartment that she really loves. And to be on that journey with her and to have her speak and really give some insightful tips for homeowners, first-time home buyers, I'm sorry. But I think she really highlighted a really interesting point where, you have to have a goal, because it's so arbitrary, especially for Gen Z and millennials, to really afford a home, especially here in New York City and cities that are really high-priced real estate. Have a goal, right? Come up with a plan to execute, and then you work towards it. But also you have to sacrifice. And she gives some really cool tips, I think, that a lot of young people will relate to.
And be able to apply. It was very actionable tips. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's great to have a goal and a plan, but a lot of people don't want to put the sacrifice in. And she made a lot of lifestyle changes, and she talked about that, just to be able to save the down payment for her first property. So as a young person, it's hard because we want that instant gratification, but she knew that if she made these, short-term changes that didn't feel great in the moment, she would set herself up for long-term financial stability, which is really, what you mentioned is our goal that we preach here every day in our day-to-day business as well. So I also loved how she talked a lot about sustainability in the home, because that's something else that she really advocates for. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'm running to go compost tomorrow, but there was a lot of other tips that she gave for small changes that you can make in your everyday life to be more environmentally friendly.
Exactly. That was also very nice to hear of how she's really making an impact, especially because she's a chef, and the kitchen, and she gave so many tips of how you can really start thinking about things differently. Like you mentioned, we're probably not going to start composting tomorrow, but you can lead up to that, right? Little steps can lead to that. And if you don't follow her on social media, you definitely should. She does really give a lot of tips on real estate, lifestyle, recipes, and sustainability. So definitely follow her.
Yes. Someone else who gave a lot of helpful tips was Alex Bethal on opportunity zone investing. And I'm so glad he did, because it's definitely one of the more nuanced types of investing. And it needs a lot, it's not easy to explain in break down, so he did such a great job of really articulating it. And I think the one thing that really struck me was when he said, opportunity zones can't make a bad deal good, but they can make a good deal great.
Exactly. He was very interesting to hear speak on this because it's such a new topic. A lot of people are not really clear on it, but it was really great the way he's found this to be an opportunity, right? It was really cool to learn how he used his NBA team, the Kings, to really, as an anchor, to really build a master plan within that community. And he did so much for the community, right? His Give Back initiative was really impressive.
Yeah, he built a world-class stadium for the Kings, but also then revitalized all of downtown Sacramento with retail and entertainment and, tons of new real estate that obviously wasn't there before. It was somewhat of a suppressed area. And he has so much to be proud of because that whole redevelopment was just best in class all around. And he was so humble about it, but we know how hard that is to pull off so well. And he really did it.
Yeah, and it was very successful too.
Another person who is revitalizing an area is former NFL player Avery Williamson. After leaving the NFL, he went back to his hometown in Tennessee and has been working on building a community and an event space on his 100-plus acre farm.
Yeah, that was really cool. And we actually were in Tennessee and because, we speak with him and he talks about it, but it's really a different experience to see it in person. And when we went down there, we drove out and he was just so humble, such a great guy. He gave us a full tour and he was just so excited, which made us even more excited to see it. And he really is making an impact there.
He is. And he's so creative as well. He's using shipping containers to build this event community space on his farm. And that's to kind of hedge against how expensive construction costs are right now. And he's not from a real estate background, obviously, but he found out about shipping containers, thought that was intriguing and started building with it. And now he's realizing how versatile they are. They're ready a lot faster and he's saving on costs. And so he's not only building something really unique and cool, but he's also having an impact on his community. He's giving the local kids, the community, obviously, something to do, something good to do with their time, to be outdoors, to learn about agriculture on his farm, to get together. And so it has a positive impact as well as he's building, real estate and building wealth for himself.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about, just learning so much. For me personally, I had no idea about shipping containers. But after the conversation and even before, we did a deep dive and it was really interesting to see the different ways you can really utilize these shipping containers. And when I'm thinking of a shipping container, I'm thinking about this
like cargo ships.
Exactly, like these hideous boxes, but they're really well designed, very modern, and they are very pleasing to the eye. So I do think that that's a remarkable way that he is, adding to his farmland, right? But as you mentioned, what's even more cool is just his give back to the kids, and he loved the kids. And I think just him being in the NFL and being, different parts of the country, he's able to bring that experience back for the kids there. And it's just remarkable what he's doing.
Someone else who's very big on having a positive impact on the communities she builds in is our very own Marianne Gilmartin, based here in New York City.
She's done so much here in New York City. She has built the Barclays Center, the New York Times building, and now she's developing in Baltimore.
She's building 1.1 million square feet over a 253-acre site. It's going to be known as the Baltimore Peninsula. But as if that's not enough, it's now seeking to be America's first purpose-driven impact community. So it's going to be, again, giving back beyond just the, brick and mortar that they're delivering to this area.
And I love, that seemed to be a common theme, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the fact is that a lot of developers, they've gotten, not a great reputation of they're just like seeking to make a profit. But it's really great that we're seeing developers now, creating these communities that are making a lasting impact.
Yeah, her episode was definitely a must listen. There were so many golden nuggets in there. So definitely a good one.
Absolutely. And I also really enjoyed speaking with Nelly Galan, right? She is the first Latina president of Telemundo, and she has made her name there. The fact that she started real estate investing at a very young age, right? She started putting a lot of her her capital in real estate. And that whole conversation was just really inspiring. Her being an immigrant coming here from a very young age, I really related to that. And, the fact that I am also an immigrant and I came here when I was really young, and we're both on this journey with the real estate, and you yourself, right, first generation immigrant as well. But her episode for me, I really resonated with.
Yeah, I love her slogan, don't buy shoes, buy buildings, right? Like that, I mean, that struck home. And the point of it is meaning, it's like kind of seems a little silly, but what the point it's making is that, again, going back to some of the other topics we discussed is like short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. And she was always talking about living beneath your means, having a side hustle if needed, whatever it takes to set yourself up for long-term financial stability. And she loves real estate as the best way to do it. And so rather than just buying, a bag, you can be putting that money towards a building, which is going to return you back money if you're just willing to be a little bit patient and not need that instant gratification.
Exactly. I think too, just don't buy shoes, buy buildings, right? It goes back to, like you mentioned, a lot of times you have, a certain amount of money and you just run to the store because it's what everyone is doing, right? But she made a really nice point that you also don't want to be 40 or 50 and be broke, right? So it's all about that investing mindset and working and sacrificing, right? So it's not all about instant gratification. It's more about being patient and wait for the returns from your investment.
And we're all guilty of that. I mean, we're all impatient. We all we work hard. So we want to go and get that thing that makes us feel good. But at the end of the day, that's not a long-term wealth building mindset to have. And so we all can learn from that. And I'm really glad that she was so clear about the need to have the right mindset towards your future.
I love the parallels that former MLS player Aleko Eskandarian made with being a former athlete and investing in real estate.
Definitely. He talked a lot about the team mentality, which was something that also NFL player Avery Williamson talked to us about. He was like, it's all about my team. I couldn't do as much as I do if I didn't have the right team. Aleko really mirrored that sentiment. But he also talked about the need to be disciplined, to be patient in investing, very similar to being a successful athlete. And of course, the gamesmanship, which is something that not enough people talk about in investing. And he experienced that trying to purchase his first property.
Right. And I also enjoyed him just bringing to light that there needs to be a lot more financial literacy within the sports community, because as you know, with athletes, they don't really have such a long career, right? And, for him, he got injured very young and, just like that, his whole future flashed before his eyes, okay, what am I going to do next, right? So I think it was very good for him to bring that to light, because a lot of the young athletes, they really need to think about their future and be smart with any sort of financial investment.
They come into such wealth at such a young age and they don't know how to properly set themselves up for success, post their playing career. And Aleko had to kind of learn that on his own. And now he's really paying it forward to the next wave of athletes, showing them how, obviously real estate is a great place to start to invest. Obviously, there's other great ways to become more financially secure, but he had picked real estate. And I loved hearing kind of how he is now an example for the next wave of athletes.
Definitely. And, just him being a homeowner, he was just so emotionally involved, right? Which was nice to see. And he's definitely just thinking of different ways. I'm sure he has a diverse portfolio, but real estate is an important part of it.
Mm-hmm. As you know, a lot of investors are very numbers and data driven, which is why it was so great to have Brown Harris Stevens chief economist Greg Heim on the show to really give us all the numbers and explain it to us.
Yes, he was so fun. I always love speaking with Greg. He makes economics fun. He makes numbers fun. And he has such an eloquent way of just delivering just really boring numbers and make it really interesting to hear. And just his weekly newsletter, The Line, I look forward to reading that. And he also has a podcast here on the More Network. So Crossing the Line. So really nice title.
Yeah, he's a wealth of information. And on our show, I loved how he was talking about, did we in fact achieve the soft landing that we thought we, would hope to after the many rate hikes that we experienced last year? He also said to be optimistic that, we should see a rate cut, hopefully in June, and then maybe 2 more closer to the end of the year. So that was really positive to hear too.
Yeah, definitely, because I think a lot of our buyers buyers, especially in New York City where we represent, and first-time home buyers, their big question is now a right time to buy? So it was really great for him to give his advice and hear it from the horse's mouth that it's always the right time if you really love a property. And then, you deal with the rates and all of the other things that you have to deal with. Like, for example, like the rates, right? Like you can marry the house, but date the rate, right?
He really reinforced as well, because everyone wants to wait for the rates to come down before that they buy. And he really reinforced, as you're saying, which is that the market's only going to get more competitive, because as soon as rates come down, everyone thinks, okay, now it's more affordable. Let me get back out there. But now it's you and everyone else hunting for that same, relatively small amount of properties. And so now is a better time to actually start your search. And if you find the right property, negotiate a great deal while rates are high. And then, like you said, refinance or look into a rate buy down program up front to make your monthlies more affordable. There's a lot that can be explored, and he really did such a good job of bringing that to light.
Yeah, exactly. Especially that there is not a lot of inventory here in New York, or quality inventory. There might be a lot of inventory, but there is not one that's going to check a lot of your boxes.
Well, someone else who's using a lot of creativity in their deal making is student housing developer Jared Hutter.
I love that he pursued student housing as a strategy, right? Because not a lot of his mentors and developer friends were even going next to that because they were saying it's too risky, but he was able to find a way.
Yeah, he so well put it that if there's an inherent demand for something like student housing, there has to be a reasonable way to mitigate the risks that come along with it. And he definitely figured it out. So it was very cool to listen to his story.
Yeah, he possess a lot of the qualities that we've been talking about that's missing in real estate. He's just so determined. And even that story, I wasn't there for that episode, but just listening to it, I resonated a lot with him. He basically stalked that one deal, right? And he ended up getting it because it takes that determination and that pursuit of really what you want.
Right. And like you said, we resonated a lot because he's not from a real estate family or a real estate background. And he's another example of someone who can find great success, not having had that, initial leg up, so to speak, into our industry. But you don't need that. And many of our guests did not have that. So I really connected with his story as well, because you can figure it out if you're willing to work hard, put yourself in the right room, surround yourself with the right people, and be patient. Yeah, and be patient.
Yeah, he was definitely a great one to end the season with. So looking back on the season, what were some of the trends that you saw?
There was a lot of themes that I felt like maybe we're repeating it, but I think it came up a lot because A, it's true, and B, it's a big part of the success in our industry. I mean, one that comes to mind, and we've already brought it up in today's episode, is surrounding yourself with the right people and the right team. Like Jared talked about that, Avery talked about that, Leco. Like, it's all about the team, because no one of us is an expert in everything, and it is a very complex process to invest in real estate. And so the more smart people you can surround yourself with, bring them together, the higher chance you have for success. You'll mitigate your risks, and you'll hopefully become a much more successful investor and faster, which is important as well.
Exactly. And I think Jared said it best. The first step is to always admit that you don't know everything. And that's why a team is super important.
I think another important trend that we saw in the season that we want to highlight is how many inspirational and powerful women that there are investing. I think that as women, we also feel like we haven't always felt so confident to invest. And that's partly why we pursued our real estate career, to kind of gain the knowledge and confidence to do so. But there are a lot of women out there who are, making amazing strides in our industry, who are building their wealth, who are making a mark. And I just loved having them on our show to hear their stories, and just to also feel inspired that, again, we're not alone, and there's many, many women out there who are doing such great things.
Yes, it's definitely inspiring to see these women breaking barriers and reshaping the industry.
Definitely. And I think there's many others, but the last one that we've also, again, talked about today is just how many of our guests are revitalizing communities. Again, we think of real estate investing, you think of maybe buying one rental property and starting there. But meanwhile, we have guests on who are completely reshaping entire cities. And it was like, blown away by that. Like I said, we had Avery Williamson doing this in his hometown in Tennessee. We have Marianne Gilmartin doing it in Baltimore. And we had Alex Bethal doing it on the other West Coast in Sacramento, California. So again, that was another really nice trend to see how the different scale that people are, investing in real estate. Some are starting small and others are changing whole cities and communities.
Definitely. And it's really cool to see a whole community being built, right? So you're seeing retail, you're seeing residential. But also I think what's even more inspirational than all of that is just they're not just doing it all for profit. They're doing it to really make a difference.
Yes. And that's important. And you need to have that in any career, and you need to know that you're succeeding and you're making, professional advancements, but also like, how are you helping people? How are you changing lives? How are you having a positive impact and lasting legacy as an individual? I think, that takes it a step further, but I think a lot of our guests do think in that way. And it was really great to kind of hear them talk about it beyond just like the professional and the profitability side of investing, right? Yeah. There's a way to have an impact as well. And you could do both well.
Yeah, and it's like fulfilling your purpose.
Mm-hmm. And I think the last theme, if we haven't like already beat it to death, is just about the work ethic, the patience, the drive, the determination, all those words. It came up so many times because of how important it is and how unfortunately so many people are unwilling to make those sacrifices. But in a way, I think we should see it as an advantage, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And if everyone was doing it, then there'd be no opportunities, right? So like allow it to weed out the people who don't deserve, not deserve, but who can't cut it basically. And so I guess it can be looked at as a positive that there are so many that, can't cut it. But that was definitely a common reoccurring theme throughout the season.
Yeah. And I think too, what I've seen as a common theme is just really finding your passion, right? And really sacrificing. A lot of people, like you mentioned, are not here for the sacrifice. They're just for the instant gratification. But also it's sort of a process, right? So you find your passion, you really work hard and sacrifice. And of course, that's when you're going to see the rewards come in.
Definitely. Now, let me ask you. So we had a lot of conversations. Yeah. We've kind of talked a lot about what we covered and, what stood out. But was there any one conversation or one lesson that really stood out to you from the season?
That's a tough one. Like we mentioned, we really had a lot of, insight and tips from everyone that was on. Everyone was super. I really enjoyed speaking with all of them. I felt I learned a lot walking away from each interview. But I think it was more so not just one. It was more so just seeing incredible women, right? This is just such a male-dominated industry, and not just the women investors. It was more about the women leaders. So, for example, like Bess Friedman and the Marianne Gilmartins of the world, I think is just super impressive to see them in this leadership position, but also very impactful, and they're paving the way for women in real estate. So that for me was not more so a conversation, because we've talked throughout this whole episode about all the tips we've learned about the work ethic and the sacrifice and all of that. But it was just so amazing to see them in this leadership position, but also making an impact in her industry.
Right. Because you don't want to see it where they get to the top and then, but they're like not trying to lend a helping hand to other women. They're like, I had to fight to be here and I'm not going to help you. Like you see that sometimes with some women or people in general, when they finally make it, they're not so ready and willing to help the next wave. But obviously the women you mentioned and the others on our show are clearly on for a reason. They want to share what they've gone through. They want to help people. They want to especially, pave the way for women. And that's very, that's very inspiring to see.
Exactly. And they always have time for us in particular, right? We've met with both of them outside of the podcast, and they always have the time for you and I. And it's something that we aspire to for other young women in the business, but just to be mentors, right? And they're incredible mentors. So we also want to pay it forward.
I mean, talking so much about this past season, all the great conversations and guests we had is only getting me more excited for season 2. We have so many great things planned and a lot of new strategies to break down. So obviously we're here because real estate investing is a very robust topic. There's not one size fits all. And we could only get through so many in one season, but we have some really good ones coming. We're going to be talking to an Airbnb expert, short-term rental expert, which, as you know, is like really tough too, because especially in New York City and also other places in the country, they're getting more strict, right? They're making it harder and harder to be successful with Airbnb. So I'm really interested to hear what he has to say. And like, I'm sure he's been doing it for a while. So I want to hear like how he's been evolving his business plan and how he approaches buying properties given the changing landscape. And also now I feel like everyone's trying to do it.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation, but also I'm very excited for exploring new headlines too, right? Real estate is always in the headlines, so it's always great to sit down and break it down, and so we can have an honest and open conversation. So I'm definitely looking forward to season 2.
Yes, you can never always count on real estate to give us something new to talk about, so can't wait. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us for season 1. Your dedication to learning about home ownership and real estate investing really showcases your commitment to wanting to create your own secure and stable financial future.
Absolutely. And we need your support to expand our reach. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Together, let's unlock the secrets of building wealth.
We'll be back soon with season 2. It's going to be even more exciting and informational, and we can't wait to share it with you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Brown Harris Stevens. As always, you can find us on tower.com and at Tower on our social platforms.
See you back here for season 2. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice.
For specific recommendations, please consult with your financial, legal, or tax professional.